if you have a source of income, it makes sense to keep that income as long as you can, at least, to supplement the business that you're doing. Yes, when you get to a point where it's either I'm going to stunt the growth of my company to continue to be a nurse, or I'm going to get this taken off the ground and really commit 100%. That's when you got to take the leap and you make that decision for yourself. Are you comfortable with what you're making and where your company is, or are you trying to reach bigger goals and different things in the future?
So today,
more passion. Sorry.
Today we're going to be talking about more passion, more energy, and more abundance. Now, today we've got a guest by the name of Adrian, and he's a nurse I worked with in Northern California on a travel assignment. And you'll hear me kind of poking fun at him in the beginning of the episode about how he was always talking about all this money he was making from candies, selling candy at fairs, and turns out it was not a joke. He's actually doing really well with this. So
who would have knew?
It was interesting for Josh because I've told you about him before. So you had all these questions for him, just like how are you doing this?
Yeah. How are you making multiple six figures selling a 5-cent candy? Like stay around for this one.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one. And you can keep an eye out for him at your local county fair in the future. So you might see him there slanging the candy. Oh, there you go. You got the candy shirt.
Getting ready for work, baby.
Yeah.
Free publicity.
Well, you got to get it out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Colin told me about what you're doing. It sounds like super interesting. Not something I would have ever thought of.
No, it's nothing I thought I would ever be a part of, but, got to make money.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Away from the bedside if you can, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Welcome to the Investing RN. I'm your host, Colin Davis, along with my co-host, Josh Condato. Today, we will be interviewing Adrian Kirschenmann. Am I saying that right?
That's correct.
So I know Adrian from a travel assignment in Gilroy, California from back in 2020 during COVID. We worked together in the ER there. And throughout the time we were working there, he was dropping little hints here and there about this candy business he was doing. And I know Jen, at least my wife, and I had some questions about it. We were thinking, why would you be working as a nurse if you're making all this money in a candy business? So one thing led to another. We stayed in touch. We got along pretty well. We stayed in touch over the years, and now he's doing big things with the candy. So we brought him on today to get a little bit about that. So can you give us a quick kind of intro to your nursing career, how you got started with that, and how you ended up in Gilroy, California?
Yeah, sure. Appreciate the introduction. But as far as nursing, I didn't really know what I wanted to do after high school. I'd always been more of a business-minded person, but I also wanted to make money. And honestly, the truth is, I had a friend that his mom was a nurse, and they were fairly wealthy. And I'm like, well, I can go to school for 4 years, get my bachelor's. You're a nurse. You know how much money you're going to be making. You're good to go. So went to school, did that. Graduated. I was only a nurse in the ER for about 8 months. And I was like, I want to start traveling. So I became a traveling nurse, moved out to California, was out there for almost 10 years, just going up and down the coast. That's when I ended up in Gilroy, all with COVID hit and everything. And, I met you and Jen.
Yeah.
Where are you originally from? You said you went to California for traveling, but where'd you move from?
From a small town in Ohio. It's called Lucas, Ohio. It's halfway between Cleveland and Columbus.
Cool. Are you still working as a nurse or?
No.
How long have you been out?
It's been I stopped being a nurse last June. So what, a year and 3 months?
Why did you finally leave nursing? Was that always the plan, or was that just kind of something that came to be?
There were a couple of different things. This candy business that we started is primarily a mobile route versus having brick and mortar stores. When COVID hit, obviously no events were going on. You weren't mobile at all. So that's where the money was. So, I was being a nurse then. But then when these events started ramping back up, not only were they good, they were great because everyone wanted to get out of the house and go to these events. So, it's me and my twin brother that do it. And we were growing at such a rapid pace. It didn't make sense for me anymore to continue to be a nurse. Like, you still make really good money being a nurse, but you could also go do an event and in 10 days do $100,000 in sales. So, why would I work 3 days as a nurse when you have those opportunities to go and grow the business pretty rapidly? And, prior to that happening, we'd have one event at a time. My brother was there. He could work those events. There were no issues. But when you have 2 or 3 events going on at a time, I can't just be on the sidelines being a nurse while all that stuff's going on, because not everything is just solved by someone giving me a call and saying, hey, this is what's going on. What do I do? Especially these events, the first times you work them, you don't know where anything is. You don't know where you go to pay the taxes. You don't know where to go to, get your registers set up. You don't know, where's your space going to be. Mm-hmm. It's all, working parts. And after the first year, it's much more simple because you've done it once and all those kinks are worked out already. But the first time you do it, like, you have to have someone that is invested in the game, because these other employees aren't just going to be like, no, don't worry. I'll figure it out. I know you're just paying me hourly, but I'll figure it out for you. Like, that just doesn't happen. So you got to be there to get the ball rolling. So it just made sense to just pursue the candy business over the nursing.
It kind of sounds like you took the natural progression. Like, everybody says you build a side hustle and then you keep your daily W-2 or whatever you want to call it until that side business is big enough to where you're stupid to keep doing your normal job. So it sounds like that's kind of the route that you took.
No, yeah. I mean, if you have a source of income, it makes sense to keep that income as long as you can, at least, to supplement the business that you're doing. But yes, when you get to a point where it's either I'm going to stunt the growth of my company to continue to be a nurse, or I'm going to get this taken off the ground and really commit 100%. That's when you got to take the leap and you make that decision for yourself. Are you comfortable with what you're making and where your company is, or are you trying to reach bigger goals and different things in the future?
Like, looking back, so how long have you been out of nursing?
Like 1 year and 3 months.
Okay. So looking back, do you wish you had left earlier because you see the trajectory that your business has taken since you left? Have you ever had those thoughts like, man, I should have left earlier because I could be here? Or do you think you needed that little bit of the level of security to give you the confidence to build a business to what it is now?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I was in a very unique situation. So I don't really look back at stuff that often. That's not the type of person I am. I kind of lived now and in the future. But that being said, had I taken that risk earlier, it would have actually been a little bit more difficult, because we were in the unfortunate situation that the business was started and, we had events starting in May. It was going to be the LA County Fair. And so order all this product and get everything going. This is in February, and then COVID hits. So we were forced to go into, get some brick and mortar stores down in malls in Arizona. So had I quit nursing at that time, and invested all in the business, would have been one of those, oh crap moments. Cause now what are you going to do? And luckily that's where COVID actually, and being a nurse was so helpful in that situation, because when you're going through, a period like that where it's hard to sell anything, I could work as a nurse and make a bunch of money on these COVID contracts to help cover the bills while you're kind of treading water. And then again, it's like anything, if, the economy's down here and nobody's buying anything this year, well, next year when they're allowed to, sales are going to be up here. So it was actually kind of the perfect scenario for me of when I quit nursing to get into the business aspect of it. But that's the important thing I always tell people. Like, I've listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff, and you hear a lot of people, very wealthy people, successful business people. They always say, sometimes it's good to not have a backup plan so that if you hit rock bottom, like, you can only go up from there. Well, I don't personally believe in that. Like, let's say this business failed and, you're left with nothing at the end. I can still always go back and be a nurse. Like, that will always be there as a sense of security for myself or my future family or something like that. Like, I'm always going to be all right. No matter what, you're going to figure it out. And I still have a career that I can lean on. Whereas like my twin brother, if things don't work out, he's either going to have to Well, he's going to have to, one, go get a normal job, or two, he's going to have to start a new business. Like there's no career for him to lean on. So that can be a scary thing sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that was when we ran into you in Gilroy. It was like right after, because I kind of remember you telling me you had all these fairs lined up, like the LA one and all these other ones, and then that whole thing happened with COVID. And I remember even afterwards talking to you. I think you were doing an assignment in Arizona, and that was the time you were doing the brick and mortar, and just kind of asking like, hey, like you guys seem like you're doing really well, but I think it was that where you were kind of building back up from that COVID thing, and you were funding a lot of it with your nursing. So that's a great thing to have.
Yeah. And it's crazy because with business, it's, everybody looks in and they see the success, right? You see the total number coming in at these fairs, you see, all this stuff, but you don't see all the behind the scenes works that goes on. And you don't see all the bills from behind the scenes that are going out to pay all this stuff. Like you can go to an event and do $100,000 in sales and still lose money. You could also go to an event, do $100,000 in sales and make $60,000. Like it all depends, but it's difficult initially because again, when you've never done a fair and you don't know what to expect, you're taking a risk going out there. I mean, let's say minimum, if you go do an event, it's at least $50,000 up front. Like you're taking that risk. If you do 50,000 in sales, okay, you broke even. Like you didn't make any money, but at least you didn't lose money. Not to do it next year. But yeah, I mean, initially with the COVID stuff, those fairs that we had lined up, we knew they were good fairs and we knew they would make money. So it's okay to invest that money up front and be ready to go for those. But if you're starting a new business, I guess this is a lesson. And you make sure that do the research before you go all in on something and like know the business, kind of like real estate investing. Listen to these podcasts, read these books, understand real estate market value. And are you doing rental properties, long-term rentals? Are you doing Airbnbs? Are you doing, whatever it may be? And before you go give yourself all in, like make sure you're learning and studying and understanding these markets and, set yourself up for success. Don't just dive in blindly and think that everything's going to go okay.
Now you said that you had these fairs lined up, LA, like whatever list of fairs that you had lined up, and you knew they were good fairs. Now, what did you have to do to prepare for that? Like what gave you the confidence in knowing that these are good fairs and they're going to make you money? Like what did it take to get to that confidence level that you knew these were good fairs?
Sure. And I guess that's kind of what I was saying in that last thing is that, so me and my brother have been in business for about 3 years, but we've been doing the candy business for, over 10 years. So we had an ex-business partner and he was primarily on the East Coast. He wanted nothing to do with the West Coast. And this is kind of how we got into the candy game. He said, I will front all the upfront costs. And, you guys get an event and you go run it on the West Coast and we'll split it 50-50. So for me and my brother is like, well, shoot, I don't have to invest $100,000. I just got to invest my time. So that's what we did. We got the Arizona State Fair first. And then we ended up getting the LA County Fair, San Diego County Fair, the Del Mar Fair. And so we knew those were good fairs. And when we split off from our ex-business partner, we knew what to expect going to those fairs because we had run them previously. Now, again, you never know what to expect at these other fairs. I'll be honest with you. Last year, I went up to Salt Lake City and I'm like, this is going to be a terrible fair. Like, this is going to be absolutely awful. And in 10 days, I think it hit $120,000. Like, it crushed it. But the crazy thing is, I went up this year. I just finished that one. Went up this year. I think it did 55,000 total in sales. Completely different year in and year out.
That explains your Instagram post, why you're so upset with Salt Lake City.
I wasn't thrilled with Salt Lake. But here's another little lesson here. What it was is, and I didn't realize this. So the Arizona State Fair, like I said, I think we've done it for 7 years. The year after COVID, they open up and they did like 3 times in revenue than they had ever done. So Arizona, what they did is they extended, used to be 4 weekends long. Well, now it's 6 weekends long because they're like, they're trying to make as much money as possible. That very next year, it went right back down to normal. So the sales are back to, pretty consistent with pre-COVID. Well, I go to Salt Lake last year. That was the first event post-COVID that they had. So same thing. You do, 2.5 times the sales. This year, it went right back down to where it normally is. Now, I didn't know that, but these are kind of the things you learn in business that, some events. So now you don't look at Salt Lake and say, this is going to be a $120,000 event. No, it's going to be a $50,000 event. So do you go back? Probably not. But, these are things you kind of got to learn in the business. But as far as like LA and all that stuff, first starting out, we focused singularly on the events that we knew made good money and made sense to us. And that was our focus initially. And that's why we could run it with just my brother and I could continue to be a nurse. But then once things really started ramping back up, that's when I needed to be like, you know what, I got to invest everything that I have, not just money, but time in the business to help grow it as rapidly and as big as we possibly can.
It sounds like having your brother as a business partner kind of allowed you to build that while still doing the full-time nursing so that you could fund it. But you were still involved with some aspects of it, even though it wasn't full-time.
Yeah, absolutely. But my brother was the main foundation for all of this stuff. Even when we were with our ex-business partner, I would do a few events a year, but he was going to every event and, managing the business. And that experience gave him the experience to be able to, open the business. And, we sell over 600 different types of candy, and we got to order all of this candy from the manufacturers. So even the ordering process is very complex. And him being able to see that over the years really helped in, when we did open the business. But yes, also I could go be a nurse. I could fly up to San Jose, Gilroy, wherever, be a nurse 3 days a week, 4 days a week. And I knew that he was back here in Arizona handling the malls and handling all that stuff. Because like I said, when you start a business, it's very difficult if you at least don't have someone present that has skin in the game when stuff goes wrong. Because a lot of these employees, if stuff goes wrong, they're just like, well, forget this, bro. Like, I'm not dealing with this stuff. They'll either just quit. We have employees that would just middle of the day, just close the store and go home because they were tired. Like, you don't know what you're going to get from these guys. So at least if you have a guy down there, my brother could drive to the store and work the store the rest of the day. And then when I was my days off of nursing, I tried to plan it where I'd have 3 days off, 3 or 4 every week. I would fly back to Arizona and then I would work the malls on those days that I was off, trying to give my brother a little bit of a break. And again, we were expanding pretty quick then as well. Like the banks were shocked. During COVID, we opened up 5 locations. It's pretty unheard of. So we were always expanding.
Are you still running those stores?
So we have 2 of them left. And I'll be honest with you, I think that probably after this holiday season, we'll get rid of them. They were nice because, especially after COVID, people wanted to get out, spend money. Now they've kind of dropped off. They make money, but not a ton. They make good money during the holiday season. But what was nice for us is that, all these malls have storage rooms in the back. A warehouse in Phoenix is $1.5 million, whatever. But if you have these malls, not only are you making a little bit of money, but it's basically free storage, right? But now we're looking into, I actually think we're going to buy a storage unit in Ohio, not a storage unit, but a warehouse in Ohio, because my dad just retired from his job and he's looking for stuff to do. And it's obviously, you can get a warehouse there for $200,000 versus 1.5 million. So makes more sense to be out there.
Yeah.
So you kind of already answered it a little bit, but I was going to ask like what your life looked like while you were building these businesses and while you were still doing full-time nursing, because I'm sure that's a massive undertaking, like working full-time nursing. And I'm sure this whole business it's a full-time job. So you have essentially 2 full-time jobs. So how are you able to do that? Like, yeah, just kind of explain how you're able to do that.
Yeah, man. I think that's the hardest part is that, people look at the business and, even nurses, I would tell about it. And, oh, that's so cool. It sounds like so much fun. Like, it's really not that much fun. I'll be honest with you. But, that it's the hours that you have to put in, like right now, that Utah State Fair, you're there. The fair is open 10 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night every day. So you're there 10 to 11. every day, 10 days straight. Get done, tear it down, start setting up the next event the next day, whether it's a, 8, 10, 12-hour drive to your next location. So prior to Monday, I hadn't had a day off in probably 2 months. And, it's not hard work, but it's a lot of hours. So even with nursing, I've been very fortunate. I've been a ball of energy my whole life. I don't require a whole lot of sleep. I just keep going. And so I've been fortunate in that aspect. But yeah, during nursing, it was tough. There were times where I was working night shift at San Jose, and I would work 6 nights in a row, and I'd get off at 7 in the morning. Well, maybe it was 6 there because I was working for Kaiser. I'd get off, I'd catch a flight at like 8 o'clock, 2-hour flight to Arizona, and I'd go straight into a mall and work that mall that day until 8, 9 o'clock at night. Go to bed, wake up, work a mall, go to bed, just work malls for those 6 days off, 7 days off that I had. Go right back up, work my 6 nights. And that was tough because you're trying to get yourself back into a night shift schedule for 6 straight nights, and then into a day shift schedule for 6 or 7 days, and then a night shift. But again, I've been very fortunate that I don't require a ton of sleep, and I can just keep going. Just give me some coffee and I'll just keep rolling with it. But listen, anytime you're starting a business, there are a lot of hours that have to be put in. And what people don't understand, that's not always like physical labor, right? Like if you're talking about hours as an ER nurse, like those are physical hours of you being at the hospital, working those hours, whether you're busy or not. There are times where it's, 11 o'clock at night and you're trying to deal with issues with the malls, or you're, sending out these emails, or you're doing payroll, or you're, setting the schedules for people, or you're negotiating contracts, and then you wake up at 7 a.m. and there's even more work to be done, right? It's not necessarily difficult, but it's always there. There's always work to be done. And you can't be a procrastinator on this stuff, because if you do start to procrastinate, you just get buried real quick.
I guess that would kind of, as that's with the property management we've been doing, we've experienced some of that ourselves, Jen and I. And there have been times when I'm like, the other day I was down at the beach with Indy, our daughter, and we're just hanging out. And I kept getting these text messages and calls for random stuff about either the building here in Los Angeles or our stuff in Wisconsin. I was just thinking to myself, like, man, when I was a nurse, it was nice. It was like when I was off, and I didn't have to think about it. Like, are there times you miss that about nursing, and just like almost like the I guess the security and the stability of being that and not having to have all that off time work?
Yeah, I mean, so here's a perfect example. We did a fair in Pueblo, Colorado. This was just prior to Salt Lake City. So same thing. It's 11 straight days of, 12-hour days. We get done on Monday night at 10 o'clock at night. It's just me and one other guy. You get the store completely tore down, right? We get it tore down and loaded into our box truck at about 5:30 a.m. Go home, get 2 hours of sleep, wake up, have to drive to Salt Lake that day. In the big box truck, it's about a 12-hour drive. Get up to Salt Lake at about 11 o'clock at night, wake up, have to be at the store at 7 a.m. this is Wednesday now. And we opened on Thursday. So we were there setting this store up. You have one day, 7 a.m. until 1 a.m. Right? So as you can see, these hours are crazy. And then again, open up and you're working 10 to 11 every day for 10 straight days. So yeah, there are times where you look back and it's like, dude, I was working 3 days a week. You know what I mean? I had 4 days off every week. I'd go golf whenever I wanted. I was getting paid every Friday. I knew what was going to go into my account, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing for some people. But, it's like that security is there, and you know what days you're working. And yes, like there are times that you do miss that. But at the same time, I got to be honest, like getting done with that, working that hard and that many hours and getting it set up in one day, which it usually takes 3 days to set up. So one day to set it up is pretty crazy. But you get it set up and you get that event open and you work that whole event, like the level of satisfaction, frankly, I think a lot of people in this country are missing, it's through the roof because you're actually proud of what you're doing. Not that when I was a nurse, I wasn't proud of, some of the days that I worked, but there were some days that I'm like, dude, this is a joke right now. Like, it's funny because I always talk to my dad on the phone and he'd be like, oh, I bet you're, treating heart attacks. And I'm like, Dad, I haven't treated an actual heart attack in 2 months. I've been handing out sandwiches and Sprites like crazy, but people that don't work it they don't get it, but that's the realistic part of it, especially these places. A lot of times you go with these contracts, it's the repetitiveness of the stuff that you really didn't expect to be doing as a nurse, whereas I feel like in business, when something comes up and you have to solve that problem, like there's a level of pride and joy in you being able to figure that out and, make the business work through it. As a nurse, you figure some stuff out, dude, you could do some incredible stuff as a nurse. You know what I'm saying? Like do some life-saving procedure no one even knows to do, and then people are just like, the hospital's just like, cool, thanks. Like
pizza party.
Yeah, exactly. Let me send you a hat, thanking you for your hard work. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's just kind of different with that level of satisfaction that I think you get from putting in those hours and like proving to yourself and to others that like, I can do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like there's a lot of nurses that get into nursing because they want to help people and they get in it. And like you said, you're handing out sandwiches and Sprites and there's a lot of helping people, but there's also a lot of crap that you have to do that you just did not imagine that was going to be part of the job.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's kind of funny because, I'm a type 1 diabetic. Yeah, I own a candy store and I'm a type 1 diabetic. Big deal. But like you would have people come into the hospital and like these are the patients that I really would connect with because I would go talk to them the first, when they were first. I mean, you're not necessarily diagnosed there in the ER because you got to go to an endocrinologist and they figure out, are you type 1, type 2, whatever, but it doesn't matter either way. And it's like, there was a lot of misinformation, like from healthcare professionals, nurses, doctors, all of them, like that they were given to these patients. And it's like, I would try to go in and talk to them and I feel like I really connected with them, but it was just like, it was frustrating sometimes the information that they were given, but also you kind of have a responsibility as a healthcare professional. And mind you, this doesn't mean that, if someone came in with cancer and a nurse had dealt with cancer, of course, they're going to have more knowledge on it than I am. But I'm also not going to be given information that makes me sound like an expert on the subject when I'm not. But yeah, it was hard because, again, those patients, I could sit down and talk to them for hours about this stuff and give them all this information. And as you know, you don't have the time to do that. Like you don't have the time or the resources to be able to sit down and talk to them. But then you also got these other people coming in, they're the most rude people you've ever met. They're 400 pounds overweight. They have high blood pressure and they're mad at you that their blood pressure's high. When I was a new nurse, this guy's berating all the staff. And so I said to him, I'm like, well, he's like, you guys put me on all these blood pressure medicines. Nothing helps. Nothing works, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, have you ever tried losing weight? I want to talk to your manager. I said, that's fine. And she did. I go in and talk to the manager and she was upset with me. I said, well, the guy kind of has a point that we just keep putting him on all these new meds. Why has no one had a conversation with him of let's get to what is really the source of why your blood pressure's high? Now, let's say this man loses 200 pounds and he's eating healthier and his blood pressure's still high. Okay, readdress it with pills if you have to. But I just think in healthcare, it's like you said, you're trying to help people and that doesn't necessarily, you're not really able to in a lot of situations. And also, most people just push pills. Take this, do this. Like, I like to look at a more holistic nursing where you're getting to the source, you're being healthier as a person. And then, if that doesn't work, then we'll figure out something pharmaceutically, which I know is not, in a capitalist country, it's just not the way it's going to be. But that's how I would like it to be.
Yeah, just so they're healthy enough to get to the fair and go through the candy maze.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Even if you have to be in a scooter, I don't care. We make our aisles 4 feet wide exactly so that scooters can make every turn.
That's
and that's a fact. That's actually true.
That's awesome.
So if you ever need to construct a maze in your apartments, 4 feet. You need 4 feet for scooters to make the turn.
Is that scooters and wheelchairs?
Yes, it is, sir.
All right. All right. We can we'll kind of dive back in here, but did you have anybody, significant others, family members, anybody like that was kind of not necessarily holding you back, but worried about you leaving nursing, or was everybody pretty supportive?
No, I mean, early on, again, I've always been a business-minded person, and I was in a relationship, as you know, for many, many years. And, I was never able to take a business opportunity during that time because it couldn't even be discussed. So luckily at the time when all that was going down, I was single. I was able to make any decision I wanted. I would say the only person that questioned it a little bit was my mom. And, her thing was, you got into healthcare for a reason. Like, you wanted to help people. And are you sure that you want to get out of that to pursue business? And the response I gave her was, as a nurse right now, I'm not able to help people the way that I want to. That desire to help people is still there, but I can't do it the way that I feel is the right way, especially, given the hospital and their, rules and what, you're allowed to do. And I told my mom, I said, ideally, the best thing you could do is start a business, grow it to a point where, the profits are insane, hopefully, and then start some sort of foundation, or, you get to that point where hopefully you can become a philanthropist, right? And that's when you can truly try to make the difference that you want to make in the world. I know people say, you do what you love and you never will work another day in your life. I don't follow that. I don't agree with it. I think anytime you're forced to work, you somehow come to not like it, at least while you're doing it. And like, do I love selling candy? No. Like, is that my dream to sell candy? No. But it's an avenue for me to get to a point where, I can go out and start a foundation for like type 1 diabetics and try to help them, make sure they have the supplies that they need. And, if they don't have insurance, they have continuous glucose monitors and they're getting education, whatever, so that was my point to my mom was, yeah, I'm ready to step away from that bedside where someone's telling me how I have to act and essentially not the things I have to say, but kind of guide that. Work these hours, put in this time in a business that's going to be way more time than I'm used to as a nurse. And hopefully in 5 to 10 years, I'm to a point where I can live how I want to live and help people how I want to help people.
Going back to your candy business, like what does your schedule even look like right now? Like, is it just kind of go through a day? Like, what does it look like for you?
Yeah. So, okay. Right now I'm at the Arizona State Fair. This is one of the few fairs that because you're back, it's during when school is in session. What they do is they extend it out. So it's 6 weekends long, right? I think September 22nd to October 31st. And it's only open Thursdays through Sundays. So noon to 10, Thursday through Sunday. So, I'm at the fair pretty much every day that it's open. Now, if I have, friends coming to town, family coming to town, whatever, I have employees here that I can get to cover those. But again, I'm the type of owner that I like to be there. I would rather be there and work harder than anyone else and like show these employees like, yeah, I'm the owner, but I still work hard versus I think in some companies you see like the owner, like this was our ex-business partner was kind of this way. Like he would drop the people off at the fair and he would go golf and he would go, he was never around. So when problems came up, he wasn't there to fix them. And listen, you run your business however you want to run it. I'm not saying that was a wrong way to do it. I just personally, I like to be there so that I know all the problems are getting solved and they're getting solved the right way. Whether it's an issue with a customer, whether it's an issue with management, whatever it may be. So yeah, for the next 6 weeks, Thursday through Sunday, it's 12 to 10. They're all day, every day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm off, but I have those 2 stores I have out here, I told you, and there's a lot of storage in the back room. So on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'll probably go in there and start organizing that back room so I can get everything inventoried. And then That's pretty much it. But again, the nice thing is, you know, I'm trying to get Colin and Jen to come out here with Indy. And, if they come out here for 3-4 days, I can take those 3-4 days off and just hang out with them, take them to the fair. So I'm still at the fair, at least one of the days and do whatever I need to do. But if I don't have any other responsibilities or anything else to do, I just love doing stuff for the business, getting stuff inventory, working the hours, figuring everything out.
If you don't mind, let's go ahead and dive into your business a little bit. Are you comfortable talking numbers? Like talk about some of these weekends you have or as a general rule, like what the year looks like what type of numbers can you give us?
So, it all depends on where you're at in the event. Again, LA, I would say at the LA County Fair, on the weekends, we're doing like a busy Saturday, you're doing about $30,000 in sales. I think our biggest day ever was down in San Antonio on the weekend, which is those events in the winter are awesome because they're rodeos. They're not state fairs. So they, the people for rodeos, they have money. You go to the state fair, you don't necessarily have money. Some people spend their last dollar to get in the state fair, but these people that go to the rodeos, I mean, they're buying $200,000 cows. So they got money. I think our biggest day down there, it's our biggest day overall on a Saturday. We did like 37,000 in sales, which is, I mean, we're selling candy bars. It's pretty crazy to think how many people are coming through. But yeah, I would say some of these events you see, like the LA County Fair, I would say probably, you probably do 300 grand in sales for that event. And profit wise, you're probably profiting, it's over 100 grand for that month. Little over 100 grand. But again, when you're expanding the business at the rate that we've been expanding it, that's another thing too. It's funny. People, yes, I made a lot of money on travel contracts as a nurse. I'm making way less money right now, not necessarily because I'm making less money, but I'm reinvesting every dollar that comes into the business. Instead of keeping it for myself, I'm pouring it right back in. Similar to like if you're real estate investing. Yeah, you can have your 5 units and just take that supplemental income every month if you want, or you can keep reinvesting it until you have 10 units, then 20 units, then 50 units. You know what I mean? It all depends on what level you're trying to get to. But for me and my brother, it's certainly, we just want to keep expanding. And by doing that, you can also figure out what events are the best events and to keep and which ones to get rid of. Same thing, Salt Lake City. This year it broke even. I'm not going to go back and do that event again just to break even. Why would I waste, 2 weeks of my life just to go make no money? Doesn't make any sense. But my brother's currently in Virginia right now. He's at the Virginia State Fair, and then he goes down. He has 2 events in South Carolina, and they're huge events, and this is our first year doing it. We actually bought it off of the guy that originally his family started this candy company. We piggybacked off of it, and now we're buying his best events from it. And he has like 3 more events after these 3 we just bought. But those are nice because they make money. Like you already see the paper, the income. And same thing, the best day out there at this Virginia State Fair. This Virginia State Fair only sees 200,000 people, and their Saturdays hit $35,000. It's insane.
How does one even get like a spot? Are you purchasing the rights to a certain amount of land at each fair, or do you have like contracts with how does that even work? Like how do you get into position to where you can even sell this candy?
Sure. So what you got to do is, every fair or all these big events, they have a website that you go to and it says potential vendors, and you click on that and you submit an application, and they'll come back with you and say, well, what is your idea? What are you trying to sell? Do you have pictures of it? So most places it's price per square foot, right? So if you have a 10 by 20, it's, $5,000, and then every extra 10 by 20 that you tack onto there, it's, $5,000. And then there are a few fairs like the LA County Fair where it is a percentage of sales. And those are a little easier to negotiate on. If you tell them like, hey, you guys want 33% of gross sales, I want it down to 25, and then you meet in the middle at 28 or whatever it may be. But yeah, so that's how you do it. You apply, and you got to realize let's something simple, French fries. You see that at every single fair, right? If you come in with a French fry stand, you're never going to get into a fair because these French fry trailers that are already there, they're not moving. The only way that you can get their spot is you can buy it off of them. And, a lot of these people will do that. Like, you give me X amount of dollars over the next 3 years, and then the spot's 100% yours, which is what we're doing currently with these 3 fairs that my brother's at. Like, we have a set amount that we're paying for each event for the next 3 years. And then after that's paid off in 3 years, it's all ours. So yeah, for the next 3 years, we're going to put in the hours, put in the time, and we're not really going to make any money because the profits are going to the owner. But after those 3 years, not only are those profits now yours, you now own the spot. So you can go sell it to somebody else and get those profits right back. Like, you can do any number of things. So
your seller financing.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what it is. It's kind of crazy to think about, but that's what all of these carnies, right? That's what we're called, carnies. I just think we're classy carnies, but that's what these carnies do, right? You build something successful and then you sell it to the next person in line. And these people will pay a premium because they know after I pay it off, whether it's a 3-year finance, a 5-year finance, whatever, like, you're making a little money while you're doing it. But then once that's over, you're making a lot of money. It's like financing a house, right? Yeah, the rents are covering my mortgage, but wait until the mortgage is paid off and I don't have that monthly mortgage payment. Now I'm really making the money, So It's the same thing.
So from what you're saying, it sounds like you fully replaced your RN income. Is that the case?
Absolutely. But like I said, you don't feel it initially because, like, if I was just keeping all the money, sure. But like, again, I'm just reinvesting it. And that's a personal decision. Again, me and my brother are trying to grow this thing huge, right? And we would honestly like to retire in the next 8 to 10 years. But right now, like, our focus is growing this business as much as possible. And then it's funny because we're actually going to get into your guys' realm of things where we're going to start rolling. Once you're making enough money in the business and you're to a point where you really need to keep expanding because you have the best of the events, we're going to start rolling our profits over into real estate. So that's kind of our next step. So grow as big as you can, get the best events, take that money and don't just keep it for yourself, keep investing, invest it into real estate. You know what I mean? Apartment complexes. We're looking into international property, but that can be a conversation for another time. But that's the next step.
Yeah.
Sounds like a whole other hour.
Oh, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Specifically for you, mentioning that you're a type 1 diabetic, did you think about leaving the nursing field and like the insurance and the benefits that you had with that? And has that been an issue for you?
The thing is it's definitely expensive, right? I've got my pump. I've got my, continuous glucose monitor, the supplies. I mean, it's a couple $100 a month easily for that. Recently they did put in a new thing with insulin. Insulin used to cost me like $600 a month. They just put a cap on it. It's $35 a month. But even before that, I was using GoodRx to get my insulin. So, it's supposed to be $600. I was getting it for $118. So, I mean, the crazy thing is when I was a nurse, I was paying well over $200 a week towards my insurance. I was paying almost $1,000 a month. Well, my supplies and everything all in right now are just under $600 a month. So, I mean, I'm actually saving money overall. Now, I don't recommend it. I'm not recommending to type 1 diabetics out there not to have health insurance because if something were to happen, things could get really bad. But it's just kind of where I am right now. It's hard, dude. When you're a type 1 diabetic and you don't work for a big time company that offers insurance, it's nearly impossible to get health insurance. Like, you put in your claim, it's denied immediately. Like, they're not going to pay that. So, maybe I should be more proactive on it, but I haven't really. Again, I don't ever think of things in the future like catastrophic or anything. That I'm one of those guys that it comes to me and I figure it out in the moment. But yeah, I mean, as far as overall like health insurance to the amount of money it is just to manage diabetes month by month, it's pretty comparable.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you guys got that kind of dialed in. I mean, with the business, and you mentioned trying to grow this thing, which sounds like just getting into the biggest fairs, and then eventually investing that into the real estate. Is there any excuse me, is there any other investing that you guys are looking into or that you do?
Not really. I mean, I used to invest in stocks and stuff like that, but I think that I've learned since owning a business is that you got to get like a singular focus. You know what I'm saying? Like, and again, the plan is to invest in real estate in the future. And I've slightly looked into this international real estate, but I haven't like dived in completely because right now business is my main focus. Like if I wanted to start investing in stocks right now, I don't really have the time to do the type of research that I think is necessary to be able to be making, big decisions on what stock to buy. Is it at the right place to buy? What's their earnings report going to look like? This, that, the other. I don't have the time for that. But I know the candy business like the back of my hand. So why wouldn't I just keep investing my money in that until we're to a point again that we don't feel like we need to grow anymore? And, it's funny because these fairs, like you'll have an event that sees 1 million people, like this Arizona State Fair. And you think, oh, it's going to kill it there because it sees 1 million people. We only do the Arizona State Fair. We basically break even, but it's home for us, right? This is where we're based out of. It's easy to set them up. We enjoy going there. The hours aren't that bad. The Virginia Fair, like I just said, that Virginia Fair is going to blow this fair out of the water. And it only sees 200,000 people in 10 days. Mind you, the Arizona State Fair is 20 days. So sometimes it's kind of you got to take a risk going to these fairs again, because it may not look like they're great fairs up front on paper, but if it's a small fairgrounds and you're seeing out of 200,000 people, you're seeing 50,000 of those, you're going to be much more profitable than if a fair that sees 1 million people, you're only seeing 25,000 people because the fairgrounds are so big and the people don't get to you. But yeah, so again, investing time and money in that stuff that I know, I can see the number, I can see the sheet, I can see my vendor location based on the whole fairgrounds. And yes, I'll take a $25,000 risk and go to this event, 50,000 all in with, Airbnb, travel to get there, all this stuff. I'd rather take a risk on that than take a $25,000 or $50,000 risk on a stock that one is more long-term, right? I always believe stocks are long-term. I think the short-term game is a fool's game. You can do it, don't get me wrong, but I think it's not the way to go. So stocks are like buy and hold and stuff. So, maybe when I retire, hopefully in the next 8-10 years and have a little, jingle in my pocket, maybe I'll start playing the stocks then. But for now, no, I'm pretty focused on just the candy business. And then, like I said, the real estate after that.
So you're not much into gambling then, it sounds like.
Well, not anymore. I haven't placed a bet in over a year. Listen, here's the thing, man. When you're an ER nurse, okay, again, I know my exact paycheck every Friday. It's coming in. I know what I'm getting. I know that I'm going to get it next week and the week after and the week after for 13 weeks, unless I extend my contract, whatever. So that money comes in and I set aside, hey, let's have, $1,000 in play money, whatever. But in business, there's too many variables. Like you can't be taking those risks because you may need that $1,000 in 2 weeks. You don't know. And that money's not guaranteed to come in from some other place. You know what I mean? You don't have that just steady income that that money's going to be coming in. And it's funny because I told my brother this. I have so many employees that are like, you're an idiot. Like you could make this much money being a nurse, work 3 days a week. I don't understand why you put in this time, put in these hours. But honestly, for me, it was one of the best lessons I could have ever learned because I'm not going to lie to you. I was not the best money manager. And when you're making a lot of money and you don't care about managing money, you're never going to learn. And your tastes and all that stuff just get more expensive. And so going down to where it's like, I can go, a couple of months. Now, luckily, all my debt is paid off. So I don't have any debt. And my truck that I drive is a company truck. So the company pays for it and stuff like that. But like I can go a month and a half without spending any money on anything unless it's, your basic essentials, your food, stuff like that. And that's something I never did ever. When I was a nurse, new TV, new laptop, new this, new that, $500 round of golf, $2,000 trip to Vegas. Like it was just constantly going. But I've learned, even at 32 years old, now I look at myself and I think back, I'm like, man, I was an idiot. Like I could have a lot more money than what I have. But that's okay with me. Like I'm very secure and happy where I'm at right now. And that was a hard lesson to learn, but it's a lesson you have to learn in life. Because if you never learned that, I'd have been 70 years old, broke as a joke. So the gambling is gone. I do not gamble anymore. If I'm in Vegas, I'll play some blackjack. But,
that's fair.
As far as like gambling daily, no, I don't do it.
It's only gambling if you don't absolutely know you're going to win. So
right,
whenever I play blackjack, I know I'm going to win.
Yes, it's I had some fun experiences playing blackjack and sports betting, but it was time to jump off that train and grow up.
For a little while, I was researching outside income sources, and I dove pretty heavily into counting cards. And for, I want to say probably 6 months, I practiced the arts for a lot of hours.
Yeah. How'd you do?
Oh, I made so much nothing, but I didn't lose any money.
That's not winning or not losing is a win. But, if you're ever interested, I have a progressive betting system in blackjack where you can lose 80% of your hands and still make money. And I will tell you this right now, sports betting, I've gotten blitzed, but in blackjack, me and my brother both, I mean, we're up pretty significant money in blackjack from this betting, progressive betting system. So, if you're ever interested.
Sounds good. I can't. So we're gonna conclude with what we like to call the final four. So it's just 4 questions here that we ask all our guests. First one is, what is a top resource that you found for nurses, whether it's a book, podcast, mastermind, whatever it is?
A top resource for other nurses? Like I didn't listen to podcasts about nursing or anything like that. Who was that guy in Gilroy? You remember that guy?
Oh, Mike?
Whatever his name was. No, it wasn't Mike. Jacob? Was his name Jacob?
I don't know.
I forget. Anyways, every time I'd walk in the break room, he's listening to podcasts, doing this, that, the other. Like, I have never been one to do that. I'll be very real with you. Even in nursing school, I was one of those people. I retained everything that I heard in class. I didn't have to study. Didn't have to study for the NCLEX. Just kind of breezed my way through it. I learned very quickly on my feet in the ER. So, but for me, like, as far as resources, everywhere I went, I always had like that one person that I found that I could talk to about what was going on there. And, we could both vent to each other, and you would vent for 10 minutes and then boom, you just let go of it and you're just, on with the rest of your day. Like, I think that's why me and Colin had such a good relationship up there. Like, we had a lot of, we like to golf and stuff like that, but it was like, we could go to each other and be like, dude, this is so stupid that this is how this situation is being handled, blah, 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 blah. This person's annoying me. Get it off your chest, and then you just move on. And you avoid the drama in the moment, because you have a lot of nurses that like, they'll go at another nurse's throat, tell them that they're a bad nurse or they suck at starting IVs or this, that, the other. Like, I'm not going to create that drama. I'll say it behind your back. And I'm not going to say it to you because I got to work with you. You know what I'm saying? So that was it. And let me tell you something. This comes from experience. The best thing that I ever did, all right, I would learn these people that I work with, like their favorite Starbucks order or whatever it may be. And I would bring it almost every time I came into work. Because you know what? If you start off a shift by making these people, surprising them and making them happy, they may have a terrible day, but they're not going to take it out on you. They're going to take it out on somebody else. So that's one of the best words of advice I can give people becoming nurses. Take care of your coworkers.
How about like a resource for like learning business or finance? Anything you could recommend for that?
So I love Robert Kiyosaki. I read a lot of his books because he's basically focused on the real estate aspect of things, but he talks a lot about finances and, rich dad, poor dad. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter how much money you're making. Just like me as a nurse, it didn't matter that I was making a lot of money because I didn't know how to use that money or, use it for other investments and stuff like that. Right. So you're making a bunch of money, but you're losing a bunch of money. You got to learn to take that money. It doesn't matter how much you're making. Could be pennies on the dollar, could be, thousands a week, and use that money in to your advantage to further your future. So Robert Kiyosaki is a big one. I know the Bigger Pockets, they have some good podcasts out there. Anybody that's successful, Mark Cuban, like all of these self-help books that they write, I think you can take a lot of stuff from all of them. The Millionaire Fast Lane, I don't know if you guys have ever read that book. That's a really good one as far as like how to get a business started. One of the best things that book says that I love is that when you work overtime for a company, if you want that extra money to continue coming in, you have to continue working overtime hours. The second you stop working those overtime hours, that extra revenue stops coming in. But when you put in overtime hours in a business, and let's say that overtime hours was creating a website. Well, now that website is active every single day. So that overtime that you put in is reaping benefits daily for years versus like, when you work for a company, if you don't keep working those overtime hours, you're not going to get that extra money. But yeah, Millionaire Fastlane, I do recommend that book.
Yeah. I would say that's a trap, and it doesn't matter how much money you're making working overtime hours. It's nice in the moment, but as soon as you stop that, it stops like you just said.
Absolutely. And you're going to pay more money in taxes on that money anyways.
Right. Yeah. All right. So second question, what is one thing that you would tell yourself or wish you could have told yourself as a new grad?
Well, that's easy for me. Like, be smart with your money, right? I have worked with so many nurses and doctors for that matter that have all this student debt. They've racked up, debt on their house, on their vehicles, all this stuff. And they are miserable because they are forced to work for these monetary things. Having a nice house is good. Having a nice vehicle is nice, right? But when you are trapped, right, working overtime to pay for all these super expensive things, you're going to get miserable, and I never got myself that bad, but I was in a pretty bad situation, but still it was just like when you rack up copious amounts of debt and now you're forced to work and that money that you're making is going straight, out of your account to pay that stuff. I don't care how much money you're making. I don't care what job you're doing. You're going to be miserable. And I feel bad. I bet you 90% of people that I worked with, nurses, doctors, ultrasound techs, all these people that made really good money, it seemed like in the hospitals, they all had these common things, they had it in common that they were trapped in debt, and that makes your life miserable, and it makes work even more miserable. So if you're a new grad, like even me speaking myself, don't take it for granted. Make sure you put aside, a certain amount every single week for retirement, for investing, make sure that you're not making silly purchases that in the moment seem awesome, but, brand new car that's $70,000 in 2 months, it's just a car anyways. Like that, it's that new shininess has faded. So I think that's the most important, because you don't want to be going through, like, it's already hard enough to go to work as it is. And then you feel like you're working for free because all your money's going away as soon as your shift's done. Like, miserable.
Mm-hmm. All right. Third question is, what's your biggest goal for the next 12 months and how can we help you get there?
Let's see here. Biggest goal. All right. So biggest goal for the next 12 months, because we have a website that's in progress, but it's not up and running yet. And we've been waiting to get a warehouse so that we have everything centrally located, because we don't want to be, say it's in stock, someone makes an order and then we're like, oh shoot, we don't have this. Like, that's not how we want to run our business. So our biggest goal is to get a warehouse. Like I said, I think we've settled on getting one in Ohio, and get our candy website up and running and start really branding, My Fave Candy Store through like Instagram, at these events, so that, when we dump your candy in a bag, it'll have our website on there. Like, you want to go order this candy, go order it. So that is our biggest goal in the next 12 months is that warehouse and getting the online sales up and running. So, and how can you guys help? Just, support the business and, drop a link when the store is up and running. Like I said, it's myfavecandy.com. It's already, like, if you click on it, it shows it's in progress. It's just, we just got to get it to where we have the warehouse, everything's centrally located, and it's up and running. And, we're hoping that the online sales, can be big for us.
Well, we'll definitely drop a link here in the show notes. But then our fourth and final question is, if you were to tell one person, so we're the Investing RN podcast, so RN registered nurse, but RN also is right now. So if you could give people one piece of advice to go and do right now, what would it be?
One piece of advice to go do right now. I'm not going to speak to something like specifically, but I will say this, like, if you want more, even if you're a nurse and you maybe want a side business or want to get out of the bedside nursing or, something like that, right now, like you said, it stands for RN, stands for right now. Right now, start educating yourself on whatever it is. I don't care if it's real estate, you want to own your own business, you want to, I know the aesthetic part, like in California, is big right now, whether it's, Botox and lip injections. And like, there's tons of money to be made in these markets. I don't care if you want to go open up a franchise restaurant, whatever you want to do. Right now, you got to start educating yourself. I'm not saying right now, go out and start making big moves, but in your head, you start making big moves. Start sitting down, reading, listening to podcasts, learning about the market you're trying to go into. Create business plans that aren't for like the banks to get finance loans. Just create business plans for yourself. Write them down. Look through these business plans. Like, oh, this was the first business plan I made. This is now the third business plan I've made. Like, look at your progress, what you got from first, second to third, and, the information that you're learning and how you're incorporating that into, and just believe in yourself. Like, I honestly believe, again, I told you 85%, 90% of people that I work with being in debt, they seem miserable at work. Like, I believe those people can be happy and they should be happy, but you got to put it, like, it is a lot of hard work and it's a lot of hours to get other stuff off the ground. But if you're willing to do that, for a few years, one of the best quotes I ever read or ever heard was like, I'm doing now in this next 3 to 5 years what nobody is willing to do, so that in that after 5 years, I can do what those people can't do because they didn't put in the time and the effort. You got to make sacrifices. I know. And listen, it gets especially tough if you have a family and stuff like that. I get it. It's not easy, but it is attainable. You got to believe in yourself and work hard and put in the work. And again, right now, like, don't push stuff back. Especially if you're a nurse, you have a job to fall back on. So what's stopping you?
And if people want to find out more about you, where can they find out? Do you have you already plugged your website. Well, plug it one more time. And then is there anywhere else that people can find out about you?
Well, no, so it's myfavecandy, FAV. So myfavecandy.com. Again, once we get the website going, that's when we're going to get our Instagram up and going and stuff like that, really start to get everything branded. But right now, that's it. We're really struggling on the media platform. I know we should be higher up on that, but we've just been doing so much stuff physically with the fairs and everything. It's kind of fallen by the wayside, but we'll get it up and running.
Well, hey man, it's been great talking. Thanks for coming on and sharing about your business and everything. And looking forward to seeing where you go in the next 12 months and getting some more candy coming up here.
Yes, sir. Anytime you guys need candy, you just let me know.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Investing RN.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast and leave a review if you enjoyed today's episode.
Be sure to share this episode with one other person and follow us on Instagram at investingrn.co if you have any other questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Your input is super valuable and we love hearing from our listeners.
Until next time, remember, your financial well-being is a journey and we're here to guide you every step of the way. Keep investing in yourself and your future.